really understand the players. You've got insurance companies, which are for profit. Contractors are for profit to get as much from that insurance company. Whatever all these players are doing, you're the one that ends up with the result. You need your own advocate. So if your house is full of water, it would be the restoration companies, which, the insurance companies cover well. Lots of brilliant companies do restoration. But the issue with that is, what if you have a structural problem? What if you have structural damage? Now it changes all of a sudden. The complexity changes quite a bit. So our players are now your building officials, permitting, repair. You've got a insurance adjuster that's not qualified to determine those damages, much less put a number to it. The insurance company's motivation, it's a profit-making company. That's its structure, right? And when we need it. They're insuring our mortgages. We need those companies, and they're important. They're probably the most valuable player here in a hurricane. The motivation is still profit. So they're going to be driven to reducing their costs. Right. And that's their motivation, right? Our motivation here, or our role, is advocacy for the client. And we're actually sworn to a different oath with the state. So ethics plays into the decision. The truth plays into it. Professionalism plays into our promise with the state that we're going to protect life, safety, and welfare. So as a licensed engineer in the state, licensed by their state, our role is as advocate for the owner, with a bunch of organizations centered about contractors, restoration companies wanting to get as much money as they can out of the insurance company. The insurance company is trying to prevent that dynamic, and the owner in a loss scenario and emotional time is in the middle of that, navigating that. But when it comes to structural damage to your home, much more higher costs, impacts, needs to be fixed correctly. And that's where that licensed engineer actually is a really, really valuable advocate for that property owner.
It feels like there's so many hoops that people have to jump through with insurance in general, but then you add a hurricane, something where hundreds or thousands of properties have been damaged in your area. It's like it's probably going to take up to a year, maybe even longer, before you're on the other side of it.
Could be,
depending on the level of damage. So I'm curious. I'm curious what types of damage, structural damages, are most common. I also want to talk about the difference between residential and commercial. Is this the same in both worlds, or is it vastly different?
Let's say a hurricane event often's got this water component, this flooding component. So that water getting into or affecting our structures or foundations, or that is going to disrupt both your maybe it's your home. You're going to have to move out. You've got a lot of losses. It's emotional, right? This is your stuff. In a business, little probably less emotion for the employees, a lot of emotion maybe for the business owner. So you may have just owners impacted adversely with loss of business, loss of their assets. So, the employees might have a job problem too, right? So just a lot of emotions, but a lot of our buildings are leased. So the owners will be separate from the business owner in the building. A lot of our insurances have exclusions for these events. Pretty scary. A lot of our contracts and insurance exclude natural disasters. It's interesting in the commercial world, often it's an exclusion. In the residential world, it's not excluded. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, insurance is a money-making thing. They don't want to pay. They don't want damage to happen.
They got a strange business scenario. So they need to brand themselves. Their branding is that they will cover and they will be there. And you can watch the ads. It's like, buy our insurance, we're better when these things happen. That's their marketing. But when they get into the events, Of course, they got to dance between brand and their promise and being profitable, right?
Right.
So they're in a tough spot. Insurance companies are really in a tough spot, especially lately with all the natural disasters, fires, floods. They're really, really struggling. But if there is structural damage in a storm, that's where we get into the really, really, really gray area. Most of your building officials, most of your jurisdictions will say, you got structural damage. You need to give us designs for the repair to get a permit to do the repair. And this is where it's like, wait a minute, this is a whole nother process. Reach out to those local structural engineers, those licensed professionals, licensed by the states with a promise for ethical behavior. So it's a whole different game when you hire a professional engineer or architect. Then you're going to need that person to give you some kind of design for the repair. But here's the opportunity. If you do this early in the game, you actually can you're going to have to do it anyway. But if you do it right away, you're going to have a design that contractors can look at and give you a price. And now you're in the early debate with your insurance company going, your insurance company is going to try to give you a quote early for damages. And you may not know, right? But if you got that designer in there and they're designing it, and now you're getting real numbers for a real design with a contractor early, now you've got the truth of the actual repair when you're talking to your insurance company, right? That's the advantage. Let's just say that these insurance companies are trying to do this right. But who's that person? How qualified is that person that's putting the price on it? Let's just say that. Yeah. That person's not a qualified engineer to assess a structural damage. Damage is going to be hidden. So imagine you've got a long wall and a long roof and applying 50, 60, 700 pounds per square foot on that wall, your building will flex over. And there's a lot of structural damage that can happen in that. And it may rebound, but it's hurt. And it may not look hurt. The drywall may be cracked in, but it may be hurt. That structure may be hurt. Mm-hmm. And you really need that qualified person. You don't want to find out 5 years later that, oh, my insurance is paid. Back in that tornado, that hurricane, my structure's hurt. Yeah, it's too late, right? You want that qualified designer in there early to assess that. We know where these things likely are damaged. We look for it, and we'll let you know, what's your asset look like after the event. And just really be ready to do some cash up front for that designer. You're not going to get reimbursed for it right away, but you are going to get reimbursed likely later. But you're going to have to upfront those designers to get into those experts early and get the answers. So be prepared for that. You're going to have to scratch your own check to that designer to assess your damages and do that plan of repair. That's probably the biggest mental, because you may be going, am I going to get reimbursed for this designer I'm hiring? Likely, yes. But be ready in all your emotions and all that loss to say, oh, I got to write a check. This feels horrible. So just, I think mentally be ready for that. Often you have contractors coming from all over into these areas to also make money. There are probably not a lot of local contractors because the local industry is in balance, and you have a lot of loss that there's not enough contractors. So you have a lot of contractors that flood in to do the work. If you've already got a design ready for permit, you've actually here you go, contractor. The rest of the group didn't do this. They don't have their designs. You can't get a permit yet. But you did that early, you're going to get a contractor. Much more likely to get a contractor because your design's done, it's ready for permit, ready to go. And that contractors are going to be like, yes, let's get this one done first. Right? Yeah.
So big difference. First step, call an engineer, have them come out.
Oftentimes your architects can do this too. But structural engineers, licensed structural engineers, Your licensed architects, depending on your jurisdictions,
Okay.
can also do that too. Go in, assess the damage, get that to your insurance company, right? The insurance company will say, okay, I can't ignore this. I got a licensed professional in my state saying these are the things that were broken, right?
Right.
In that, you can kind of ask for, some engineers do it, some don't. You can ask for a general budget of repair. Mostly those insurance companies cover it, but you're ahead of the game. You're ahead of the game. There's a difference between restoration, mop up, water, drying out, getting rid of mud or whatever that is. That's different than I think I have a structural problem, right? As brilliant and wonderful as these companies are and these entities are, you still deserve your own advocate that has knowledge.